They found the human at dawn, kneeling in crimson mud like she belonged there. 8 Kryn hunters moved through the fog in a tightening half-circle, spears leveled, claws half-extended, eyes locked on the figure crouched by the riverbank. The human didn't run. She didn't raise her hands. She didn't even glance at the weapons. She just rocked slowly, cradling something small against her chest as if the world had narrowed to one fragile heartbeat. "Step away from the cub, human," the lead hunter growled. His translator tried to soften the threat into something diplomatic, but it still came out like violence with manners. His name was Raketh, a veteran with scars carved deep into his forearms and 3 raider kills in the last moon cycle. His spear tip hovered a breath away from the human's face. Lyra Vale didn't move. Her eyes, flat, forward-facing, unsettling to many species, stayed fixed on the small bundle of fur in her arms. Her voice came out raw, barely audible. "He's dying." The hunter's nostril slits flared. The air smelled like iron and wet stone. And underneath it, young blood. Kryn blood. A cub's blood. A second hunter stepped forward, spear trembling with anger. "You killed Tovik," he snarled. "You killed an alpha's son." Lyra finally looked up, and what the hunters saw in her expression made their spears hesitate. Not guilt. Not calculation. Tears. The human was leaking. "No," Lyra choked. "I found him like this." Her voice cracked hard on the next words. "Razor wings. They were still feeding when I scared them off." She shifted slightly, careful with her burden, and the hunters saw the cub clearly for the first time. Tovik was small, barely 6 seasons old, barely old enough to leave the den village without an escort. His fur was matted with mud and blood. Deep gashes scored his torso in cruel, parallel lines. His chest rose and fell in tiny, labored movements, wet, shallow breaths like the body was forgetting how to stay alive. Razorwing venom shimmered faintly where the wounds oozed. The hunter's anger flickered, confused by the evidence in front of them. "Lies," Raketh spat, because sometimes denial was the only armor a warrior had when the truth hurt. But his voice didn't carry the same certainty now. Humans were known for many things in the outer territories. Their stubborn survival. Their pack-bonding instincts. Their disturbing ability to keep moving in environments that should have killed them. But humans were not known for killing cubs. Even the Kryn's enemies did not stoop to that. "Look at my hands," Lyra said. She lifted one palm slowly while keeping the other beneath Tovik's head. Her fingers were torn and bloody, but the wounds weren't claw marks. They were punctures and slices. Beak strikes. Defensive wounds. "I fought them off," she whispered. "I've been carrying him for 3 hours trying to reach your settlement." A hunter's ears tilted. Someone else muttered in Kryn tongue, low and sharp. Because the human settlement sat in the opposite direction. They all knew it. Raketh's spear lowered a single inch. "Why?" he demanded. Lyra stared at him like he'd asked why water was wet. "Because he's a child," she said. Her voice broke on the last word. She tightened her hold, protective even now, even while surrounded. "When I found him," she continued, "he looked at me and he was scared. He didn't understand why he was in pain." Lyra swallowed hard. He kept calling for his mother. The hunting party went still. Kryn culture had protocols for death. Rituals. Rites. The proper ways to stand and speak and carry grief without letting it own you. But there were older laws than culture. Older than rank. Older than pride. The laws that lived in bone. The cub's eyes fluttered open. Not fully. Just enough to focus on Nora's face in the dim confusion of the dying. Nora leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching his. "I know," she whispered. "I know, little one." A third hunter, quieter than the rest, spoke without anger. "The venom is already in his blood." He didn't have to finish. They all understood. Even if they ran back now, even if the fastest runner carried him, even if their best healer met them halfway. Tovik was gone. He just hadn't stopped breathing yet. Nora nodded once. Her jaw clenched so hard the muscles in her cheek jumped. She looked down at him like she could hold him in the world by force of will. Then she did something that would be retold in Kryn Den halls for generations. Nora bent her head, pressed her lips to Tovik's forehead. A kiss. A human custom, affection, comfort, goodbye. She held the kiss for a long moment, her tears falling into his fur. And then she began to hum. No words. Just sound. Soft, steady, rising and falling in a pattern that reached deeper than language. A lullaby. The hunters didn't know that word. But they knew what it did. Tovik's breathing slowed. The tight panic in his small body eased. His claws, tiny, blood-stained, trembling, relaxed against Nora's sleeve. The fear left his eyes. And then, gently, he was gone. Nora's hum broke. What came out of her throat wasn't speech. It wasn't even a cry. It was a raw, keening sound that echoed off canyon walls, a grief call so primal it could have belonged to any species that had ever lost a child. She rocked back and forth in the mud, clutching Tovik's body like she could undo the universe through sheer refusal. The Kryn hunters stood frozen. Then, one by one, the spears dropped. Raketh was first. His weapon fell from his claws and thudded into the red mud. Then another. And another. Until 8 spears lay abandoned in the crimson earth. 8 warriors stood with heads bowed. Not in surrender. In respect. Because in that moment, Nora was not an outsider. Not a tolerated human. Not a strange 2-legged creature who built shelters in places Kryn considered cursed. In that moment, she was something the hunters understood. She was pack. Raketh approached slowly, claws retracted. He knelt beside her in the mud, careful as if sudden movement might shatter what remained. His voice softened, still rough, but no longer sharp. "Give him to me," he said. "I will carry him home to his mother." Nora looked up. Her eyes were swollen and red. Her face streaked with mud and tears. "I'm sorry," she rasped. "I tried. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him." Raketh's nostrils flared. He did not look away from her. "You gave him comfort in his last moments," he replied. "You fought the razor wings. You carried him for hours knowing he would die." His voice dropped lower. "You sang him into the next hunt." Then Raketh placed one massive paw on Nora's shoulder. It was not a threat. It was a weight. A grounding. A recognition. "In my clan," he said, "this makes you den mother." The other hunters rumbled agreement. A low sound of respect moving through 8 chests. Raketh continued, voice steady now. "In all clans, this makes you Kryn friend." Nora's breath hitched. She looked down at Tovik one last time. Then, with slow reverence, she placed the cub into Raketh's arms. Tovik looked even smaller there, tiny against the hunter's broad chest. Raketh held him with careful strength, the way you carried something sacred. Nora pushed herself to her feet on shaking legs. Her clothes were soaked with mud. Her hands were stained with blood that was not hers. Her throat felt like it had been scraped raw from the inside. "I want to come with you," she said. Her voice shook, but her spine stayed straight. "I need to tell his mother that I tried." Raketh nodded once. "She will want to meet the human who held her son as he died," he said. He paused, then spoke in his own language, without the translator, something the hunters clearly understood by the way their ears shifted and their eyes softened. Nora didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Something like, "You loved him at the end." Something like, "You did not let him die alone." Nora wiped her face with the back of her wrist. Then she fell into step beside the hunting party. No spear at her back. No rope on her wrists. Not prisoner. Not hostage. Pack. As they walked, the sun rose fully over the canyon, turning the red mud into gold. Behind them, 8 spears lay abandoned in the crimson earth, forgotten weapons in the face of something older than war. By nightfall, every Den village would hear the story. The human who kissed a dying cub's forehead. The human who made alpha hunters drop their spears. The human who proved that some instincts transcended species. Love. Grief. The need to comfort the dying. Lyra Vale had come to Kryn Prime as an explorer. A researcher. An outsider. She would leave as something far more important. She would leave as family. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe for more HFY moments. Welcome to HFY Survival Arena. New stories are coming fast, Rocket.